What is up, everybody? Mr. Purtis here. Welcome to unit number 5, part 3 on imperialism. This is 1750 to 1900, and this is going on at the same time as the Industrial Revolution. It's the same time period as the Age of Revolutions with the Enlightenment and the French Revolution and the Haitian Revolution and the Latin American Revolutions. And there's going to be a part 4, which is on the migration of people. But for here and now, let's get into imperialism. This is a huge topic, but I'm going to try and cover it all in one video here, so it's probably going to be a little on the longer side. So let's rock and roll on this. First of all, what is imperialism? It is when one country or an empire or a territory goes out and they expand their empire through either diplomacy, diplomacy means negotiation, or they use force. So it's when one country goes out and conquers another area, country, territory, whatever it is, through either diplomacy or through force. This period that we're talking about, we're going to see a lot of Western European countries going out around the world, conquering places that they never could conquer before because they didn't have enough technology, or didn't have access to explore areas because they didn't have enough technology. So this is a good reason why, an analysis, because of the Industrial Revolution that we've gone through and all these new inventions that are happening in the 1850s and 60s, it allows this imperialism to happen. Some people call and refer to this time period as New Imperialism, which refers to that there would be an old imperialism, and an old imperialism would be the conquering of the Americas by Western Europeans in the previous time period of 1450 to 1750. All that stuff I just said there is what we would call synthesis, right? Try and say that 3 times. So this is similar to what we saw in the past time period. So we're going to see Europeans in this time period going out and conquering places again. There's a couple causes or motives for this. The first one is nationalism. The belief that my country is superior to your country, and if my country is Britain and your country is France, and your country, France, goes out and conquers an area in Africa, I feel as the British people that we need to be better than the French, so we need to conquer 2 places in Africa. And when we conquer 2 places, you, the French person, say, hey, whoa, we got to conquer 3 places. So we go out and conquer places as a way to show that we are superior to the other countries that surround us. It's nationalism. It is pride in your country. Number 2 is economic motives. We, the British, have gone through the Industrial Revolution. We need more raw materials to make in our factories. It could be oil, it could be more coal, it could be rubber, it could be more cotton to produce in our textile factories. We need more resources, and we don't have all those in our country, so we need to go out and conquer places in order to get free or cheaper resources. Also, conquering these places opens up a new market to force these people to buy our resources. Similar in a lot of ways to mercantilism from the previous time period. Synthesis. Also, religion. We the British are Christian. We want to go out and spread our Christian religion to people who aren't Christian. We want to essentially force these people to become Christian and to quote unquote save their souls because they are maybe animistic, maybe they're Shinto, maybe they're Buddhist, maybe they're Hindu, and we wanted them to learn the ways of Christianity because we can help them. Lastly is something called social Darwinism. I'm sure most of you know that Darwin came up with the theory of evolution, that animals evolved, and that human beings specifically evolved from chimpanzees or apes. In this case, social Darwinists are going to put a racial and racist spin on this. This is a totally racist thing. This is going to be used by people in the future to portray, or Hitler's going to use this as his for his racist, pure Germany, social Darwinism. We're going to see it's still used today by people who are racist to certain groups of people. In this case, in terms of social Darwinism, people who are social Darwinists believe that we have evolved, that a chimpanzee is the original, is where human beings have evolved from, and from the step between chimpanzee and European was an African man. So the African man is closest in lineage to the chimpanzee, and the white or European person is most advanced. Because the white person is most advanced, just like the lion conquers the cheetah, I don't know, whatever the lion conquers, you can tell me when you see me next time, whatever, that the white man, his duty, his God-given right is to conquer the non-white person and to civilize him. This is racism at its finest. A lot of people buy into this as a means for justification for conquering people. So these are our causes. NERS, nationalism, economic, religion, and social Darwinism. So here's a couple themes that we're going to see. 1, industrialized powers are going to establish and create transoceanic empires. What does that mean? Industrialized countries are creating empires that span over oceans. Similar to what we saw with the Spanish Empire in the previous time period, there's new empires. An example here is we're going to see the British, who had areas and had existing colonies in India from the beginning of this time period, are going to expand. So this is 1767, right around the start of this time period. This is the British areas that are under British control. Along the coast here is trade areas. They are going to expand, and by the end of this time period, so 1767, by 1858, the British have pretty much conquered all of South Asia or India. The areas in green are dependent on them, so they are princes who gave up power in order to, and stay in power in order to allow the British certain rights. So we have these areas that had colonies are going to expand it. The example is the British here in India. One example is when the British do create this empire in South Asia, people in South Asia don't like this. Similar to what we saw with China and the Boxer Rebellion, a group of people in India are going to rise up and rebel against the British. They are called Sepoys. Sepoys are the name given to soldiers, Indian soldiers, who are going to help the British control and create order in the country. What happens in India with the Sepoys is they are working for the British, not the British government, the British merchants of the British East India Company. And the British East India Company is going to provide them with cartridges. This is the bullet cartridge. And literally you have to take this thing, bite off the end of it, and load the gunpowder into the gun. The problem with this is that the rumor spreads among the Sepoys that this has been greased with cow and pig fat. If you know anything and you remember anything about South Asia, most people are Hindu and Muslim. Hindus don't eat meat, red meat. Muslims don't eat pork. If you grease this up with pig and cow fat, it is disrespectful to both. They rebel, the Sepoys. And as a result, the British come in, their government and their soldiers come in and put down this rebellion. After they put down this rebellion, the government of Britain comes in and takes over the entire area. They conquer India. They officially have conquered South Asia. The impact of this rule, and you can kind of see some positive and negatives here. In positive, when they come in, they're going to change the government. The government is going to be a little more efficient. It's going to be centralized. We're going to have little princes in control. We're going to overthrow the Mughal Empire, and we're going to create a good centralized government. Schools are going to be founded. Also, we're going to bring some technology. We're going to build railroads and telegraph lines and postal service, which is a good thing. But most of what we see in imperialism is negative. The people who live in India are going to be dependent on the British. They're going to be forced to buy British goods. They're going to be forced to almost serve on behalf of the British. They're going to lose a lot of their farmland to growing cotton because that's what the British forced them to do. So we're going to see a lot of starvation. This is not in any way a good thing in India. So we're going to see a lot of problems come from British colonization. It's also going to lead to nationalism in India, and we're going to eventually see by the early 1900s a guy named Gandhi who's going to lead this nationalist movement, but more on that later. Also, European states, so the U.S. and the European states, the United States, as well as Japan, who industrialized under the Meiji Restoration, are going to establish empires through Asia and the Pacific. So what we're going to see is the Spanish and the Portuguese, who have had colonies here from the previous time period, synthesis, with the age of exploration, they're going to decrease in their power, and they're going to lose their power to the U.S. and Japan. We're going to take over a lot of these islands. If you are bored, look at a map of the world today. Look at most of these islands. Then most of them are run by the United States government still today. That's because the United States needed a midway point between the U.S. and China, because we want to trade with China. Everyone wants to trade with China. So we conquer these areas. Also allows for military bases as well in areas like Hawaii and a lot of these islands. One area that the United States does take over is this area here called the Philippines, which have been conquered by the Spanish in the previous time period. So U.S., Japan, Europe up, Spanish, Portugal on the way down. Also, some European states are going to use warfare and diplomacy to establish empires in Africa. One example here is in the Congo, which is a big region in Central Africa. The king of Belgium, whose name was King Leopold, meets or sends representatives to meet with the emperor or the king of the Congo. He tells the king of the Congo, hey, king of the Congo, I'm simplifying seriously here. You have a problem with a slave trade in your region. Let our soldiers come in and help you out. And if you let our soldiers come in and help you out, we just want a little trade rights in here and we'll be good. So the king of the Congo says, great, bring in your soldiers. Leopold brings his soldiers in, and instead of helping stop the slave trade, he basically arrests the king of the Congo and overthrows his military and sets up a colony there. Anyone who rebels against him or the military is killed. Horrifically awful brutality that we're talking about here. Some of the worst things that human beings have ever done to each other. Chopping off body parts and torture and nasty, awful stuff by the Belgians here. So we're going to see diplomacy, negotiation, and then warfare as well. They are going to force the Congo people to harvest rubber, which comes from trees here. There's sap that comes out of this tree. If you don't harvest enough rubber per month, the punishment by the Belgians is to cut off your hand. So you can see people in these pictures are all missing a hand. Really horrifically awful stuff. Look how young this person is. It's amazing that people could do this. This is only 150 years ago. It's not forever ago. And this is a horrible way to treat human beings. Even worse is some of these people from the Congo up until the 1950s and 60s are going to be brought to Belgium and put in zoos. It's not just Belgium who is doing this. So this is a zoo with Congolese people. You can see the onlookers watching this girl, watching this guy here in their natural habitat. This is social Darwinism. They view people from Congo as not even human beings. They're animals. This is also going to be done in the Bronx Zoo. This is not just in Belgium. It's in European countries, in the United States. We bring people from Africa, from other regions, and kind of mock them. What happens in Africa because of this competition? This is Africa in 1880. The areas on the coast are areas that were under European control. This is what it looks like by 1914. All of Africa has been colonized by Europeans except for Liberia and Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia. And Ethiopia actually fought back the Italians. So it's a huge change here from what we would have seen in 1750, which is coast, to here, which is the total colonization. That's a change, not a continuity. Change. A couple other things. In some parts of these empires, Europeans are going to establish settler colonies. By settler colonies, I mean the British are going to encourage, or some Europeans are going to actually encourage people from their country to go and settle and form these colonies. So we're not just sending a couple military people to enforce, we're trying to send a whole bunch of people into this area. One example. You want to be in my video? That's awesome. Do you want to be in my video? Okay, I'll go take care of it in a second. Life's tough. Okay, I'll go take care of it in a minute. So anyway, so the Europeans are going to establish these settler colonies. So for example, the British are going to send people to Australia. They're going to promise them land. They're going to promise them huge tracts of land, which is essentially money, to these people to go settle in Australia. So we're going to see this in the mid to late 1800s. So when you think of Australia today, you probably think of white people. And that's because the British during this time period are going to encourage people to go there. We're also going to see people go to southern Africa, also New Zealand. So these areas are going to be settled. The quote that is used to describe the British, because the British are the most industrialized, they conquer the most areas, is the sun never sets on the British Empire. And what that means is everything in red here are British colonies. The British colonies are going to span, this is the largest empire in human history. Now the Mongols have the largest land empire, this is the largest empire, and the British specifically are able to conquer all this land. Two more things here. One, some people are going to rebel. Sometimes it's going to be direct rebel, sometimes it's going to be protest. One example here is when the British conquer southern Africa here, there is a group of people who are going to fight back. They're called the Zulus. This is kind of a reenactment of it. The Zulus are going to create their own country or state on the edge here and try and launch attacks against losing their land to the British. The British are industrialized, the Zulus are not. And generally, when you're not industrialized, you can't win in the long run. And the Zulu kingdom is actually going to be shrunk down to a bare minimum of stuff. And the Europeans, and especially the British here, are going to be successful. So this imperialism, this resistance and anti-imperialism resistance generally is not as successful as the people would hope it would be. Also, one last and final thing. In other parts of the world, industrialized states are going to practice what we call economic imperialism. If you're a business, you are going to conquer. You're not going to go in and conquer land militarily. You're going to buy up land, and you are going to kind of control that land economically. It is the doggy again. You're going to. We have to redo this at some point. You're going to go in. You're going to buy up land, for example, in Nicaragua. You're going to use that land to your advantage, and because you own so much land, you can influence, and you are a huge business area. You can influence the politics and government of that area, almost to the point where you can control it. So we're going to see that industrialized areas, for example, the United